The morning began like any other. Children went to school. Workers filled the cities. Planes drew white lines across a soft blue sky. No one knew that it would be the last normal morning Earth would ever see. At first, it started small, a few power failures across Europe. Satellites lost contact for a few minutes, then came back online. News anchors smiled and said it was just another solar storm. People went on with their day. But then, the lights went out again. This time, they didn't come back. Across every continent, screens flickered, died, and stayed dark. Phones stopped working. Cars stalled in the middle of highways. In some places, the air itself began to hum, a deep vibration that no one could explain. In the skies over South America, the first witnesses saw something impossible. A shadow moved across the clouds, slow and massive. It wasn't a storm front. It wasn't a jet. It was something else, smooth, metallic, and alive. It didn't fly. It floated. At 9:32 a.m. Eastern Time, NASA detected hundreds of unknown objects entering Earth's atmosphere. They didn't follow any known flight pattern. They didn't respond to radio calls. Then, one by one, they stopped moving, hanging in the sky over the largest cities on the planet. New York, London, Moscow, Beijing, Sydney. Each city had one. And then, the silence broke. From every hovering ship came a blinding flash. A wave of light swept down through the clouds, turning air into fire. Windows shattered miles away. Skyscrapers melted like wax. People screamed, ran, and disappeared in seconds. Military forces tried to respond. Fighter jets scrambled, but their engines died mid-air. Missiles refused to launch. Every electronic system on Earth had gone dead. In one last desperate attempt, a group of soldiers in Nevada tried to fire a nuclear missile manually. They turned the key, pressed the button, and watched in horror as the warhead simply dissolved. Metal turned to dust before their eyes. The invaders didn't speak. They didn't make demands. They didn't even seem to notice humanity. They moved with purpose, calm and efficient, like a farmer walking through his field. The ships opened their hulls, releasing long, thin machines that burrowed into the ground. They began to pull something out. Not water, not oil, but energy itself. It was as if they were draining the planet's life. By nightfall, most of the world communication was gone. The sky glowed red from fires that stretched across continents. Smoke covered the stars. In the ruins of what was once London, a group of survivors hid beneath a collapsed bridge. One of them, a scientist named Dr. Mara Lin, held a small notebook and whispered, "They are not destroying the planet. They are feeding from it." Her voice trembled as she looked toward the burning skyline. "What kind of creatures feed on energy itself?" someone asked. No one answered. Meanwhile, in orbit, the last astronaut aboard the International Space Station watched the destruction below. He recorded a message, a final broadcast. His voice was calm, almost broken. "This is Commander Hayes, ISS Alpha. I can see them from up here. They're not ships, not exactly. They look like living machines. The planet's surface is changing wherever they touch. It's as if they're planting something. If anyone can hear this." Static filled the signal. Then, silence. The ISS went dark. By the second day, cities across the world were nothing but smoking graves. The air was thick with ash. Those who survived wandered through empty streets, calling out names that would never answer. Then the earthquakes began. Not small ones. Deep, violent tremors that tore open roads and cracked mountains. But something was strange. The quakes didn't come from the areas the aliens were attacking. They came from the untouched parts of the planet, the forests, the deserts, the deep oceans. Dr. Mara Lin felt it first, far beneath her bunker. The readings on her old, battery-powered seismograph were unlike anything she'd ever seen. Regular earthquakes have rhythm, waves that rise and fall. But this was a pulse, a heartbeat. "The planet," she whispered. "It's responding." She didn't know it yet, but she was right. Far below the crust, miles beneath the deepest layers of rock, something ancient stirred. Pressure built in strange patterns, as if guided by thought. Rivers of molten rock began to move, not randomly, but with purpose. In the skies above, the alien ships paused. Their movement slowed. Their lights flickered. Something in Earth's core had reached back, and it was angry. Across the Pacific, an enormous storm formed out of nowhere. Wind speeds climbed beyond record limits. Satellites, the few still alive, caught a single image before they failed. A spiral of lightning shaped like an eye. That night, survivors across the globe saw the same thing. Lights moving under the ground, glowing faintly through cracks in the soil. The Earth itself seemed alive. And for the first time since the invasion began, the invaders hesitated. Mara looked up from her bunker window as the ground outside began to shimmer faintly, like veins of light crawling through the earth. She whispered, almost in awe, "What are you, really?" The planet did not answer, but its pulse grew stronger. Slower, louder. Something was coming. And somewhere, in the silent sky, one of the alien ships began to break apart, crushed from within, as if the very air around it had turned against it. The day the sky burned was the day humanity fell, but it was also the day the planet woke up. Days passed after the sky burned. The world had gone quiet. Too quiet. No radio, no signal, no hope. The cities were nothing but smoke and ash. The survivors, scattered, starving, and terrified, didn't know if anyone else was left alive. In the ruins of the old world, only nature remained. But even nature had changed. Forests that once stood still now moved when no wind blew. Leaves shimmered with strange light. Roots twisted and crawled through the dirt like living veins. Animals were nowhere to be found. Birds had vanished. Only the sound of deep, distant thunder filled the empty air. Dr. Marilyn sat inside her underground bunker, staring at her seismograph. The machine still worked, powered by an old hand-crank generator. The readings were impossible. Every few minutes, a massive pulse shook the senses. Not random, not chaotic, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Mara spoke softly into her recorder, her voice weak but steady. The planet isn't dying. It's reacting. Something deep under the crust is moving in patterns, like a response to the invasion. I think Earth is fighting back. Outside, rain began to fall. But this was no normal rain. Each drop glowed faintly blue, lighting up the cracks in the street. When it touched the ground, steam rose, carrying the smell of ozone and metal. Where the rain fell, the ground seemed to grow stronger, almost healing itself. High above, the alien ships hovered in silence. They had begun their work, harvesting energy from the planet's core. Thin black towers drilled deep into the crust, pulling glowing streams of molten energy upward. But then, the flow stopped. Their machines jammed. Their sensors glitched. Something below was pushing back. One ship near the Andes suddenly trembled. Its smooth metallic surface rippled like liquid. Without warning, the ground below it split open. A canyon of red fire erupted upward, swallowing the ship whole. There was no explosion, just a single flash of light and silence. The aliens did not understand. They were a species older than most stars, conquerors of dozens of worlds. No planet had ever resisted. But Earth was different. It wasn't just rock and water. It was alive, and it was angry. In the Pacific Ocean, strange things began to happen. The water temperature rose by 10 degrees in a single hour. Massive waves appeared from nowhere, colliding with each other in impossible directions. Beneath the surface, coral reefs glowed like burning coal. The ocean floor cracked open, revealing enormous geysers of steam and glowing minerals. From space, the planet no longer looked calm and blue. It pulsed with faint lines of light, red, green, and gold, tracing through mountains, rivers, and valleys like veins under skin. Dr. Marilyn watched from her bunker window as the ground outside trembled softly. A sound filled the air, deep, low, like the growl of something awakening after a long sleep. The walls vibrated. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then, silence again. Mara grabbed her recorder. "It feels like the planet is alive," she whispered. "Not in a poetic sense. Literally. I think it's aware. I think it knows what's happening to it." Suddenly, her emergency lights flickered. The power surged, stronger than ever before. When she looked at the generator, she gasped. It wasn't burning fuel anymore. It was glowing, pulsing with the same blue light as the rain. She stepped outside cautiously. The forest near her bunker had changed. The trees were taller, their bark covered in glowing patterns that looked like circuitry. The roots stretched across the ground, weaving together like muscles. And the strangest part, she could feel something in the air, like a quiet whisper inside her mind. A presence. Old, powerful, watching. Then came the sound, a distant crack, deep underground. The earth shook, and a blinding light burst from the mountain range to the east. The sky turned gold as the ground split open, revealing enormous crystal formations rising from beneath the soil. The crystals hummed softly, releasing waves of energy that spread across the land. Wherever the energy touched, the alien machines began to die. Metal turned brittle. Circuits fried. The once unstoppable harvesters began to crumble, their sleek bodies sinking into the dirt as if the earth itself was swallowing them. From orbit, the alien command ships tried to respond. They launched beams of energy toward the surface, but the beams bent, twisted, and vanished before impact. The atmosphere had changed. It was no longer just air. It was a shield. The invaders tried to adapt, but their weapons failed. Their sensors filled with static. The planet's magnetic field had gone wild, pulsing in unpredictable waves. One by one, their systems shut down. And still, that heartbeat continued. Stronger, louder, closer. Dr. Marilyn watched the lights dance across the sky. She realized something terrible and beautiful. We always thought we owned the planet, she whispered. But maybe we were only guests. Deep under the earth, far below the molten rivers and ancient rock, something enormous shifted. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't life as humans knew it. It was the planet's core, awakening like a living heart. The alien ships detected it, a massive surge of energy moving upward, spreading across the crust. Their scanners identified it as a planetary anomaly. They didn't know it was intelligence. As the night deepened, the forests glowed brighter. The oceans raged louder. The mountains groaned like sleeping giants. Earth was awake now, and it was preparing to fight. The survivors who saw it didn't know whether to cheer or pray. Because if the planet could fight back, it might not need humans at all. The world was dying. Or maybe, changing. 3 weeks had passed since the invasion began. The skies no longer looked blue. They shimmered with strange colors, like oil on water. The air buzzed faintly, as if electricity lived inside it. The old world, the world of cities, lights, and noise, was gone. And the few humans who survived were learning to live in silence. Dr. Marilyn walked through what was once a small town in northern Canada. Snow covered the ruins, blackened from ash. No sound, except the crunch of her boots and the low hum that never stopped, the sound of the earth breathing. She carried a small recorder and a backpack filled with old scientific tools, a Geiger counter, a cracked compass, a battered tablet that still flickered when she turned it on. Her last entry was simple. If anyone finds this, I'm still alive. The planet is awake, and I think it's trying to talk to us. She wasn't alone, not completely. A handful of survivors followed her, a group of engineers, a nurse, 2 teenagers, and an old man named Harris who had been a soldier once. They didn't understand what Mara was doing, but she gave them hope. And hope was something they hadn't felt in a long time. They traveled north, toward the magnetic pole. Mara believed that was where Earth's new energy was strongest. Her readings showed massive electromagnetic bursts from that region, almost like signals. But not random ones. They were organized, patterned, like language. One night, as the group set up camp among the ruins of an old observatory, the ground trembled. Not violently, softly, like a pulse. The compass needles began to spin. The snow under their feet glowed faintly with veins of blue light, forming shapes that looked almost like symbols. The teenagers gasped. Harris raised his gun. Though it was useless now, metal weapons had become unstable. Mara stepped forward slowly. The symbols spread outward, forming a circle around them. The light grew brighter until the entire night was painted in blue fire. And then, a voice. Not in words, in feeling. A deep vibration that filled their minds like thunder underwater. Mara dropped to her knees. Her eyes widened. She could understand it, not as language, but as emotion. Fear, anger, pain. The planet was speaking, and it was hurting. It's trying to heal itself, she whispered. We're standing in its wound. The ground pulsed again. This time, farther away, toward the east. And from that direction came a sound that no one would ever forget, a metallic scream. The kind that cut through the air and made every living thing freeze. The aliens were still there. Far on the horizon, they saw one of the black harvesters moving through the snow, dragging broken parts behind it. Its hull was cracked, its lights dim. But it was still alive, still trying to feed. It extended long cables into the ground, sucking out whatever energy it could find. The Earth responded instantly. The snow around the machine hardened into crystal. The cables froze, turned to stone, and shattered. Then, from beneath, a fissure opened, glowing red, and swallowed the harvester whole. The group stood in silence. No one spoke. They had just witnessed the planet's revenge. That night, as the survivors huddled inside the observatory ruins, Mara spoke quietly to Harris. It's fighting back. Not for us. For itself. Then what happens to us? Harris asked. I don't know, she said softly. We might not be part of its plan. Outside, the aurora danced in the sky, brighter than ever before. Streams of light curved across the atmosphere, following patterns that looked almost deliberate. Mara recorded the movement on her tablet, overlaying it with her magnetic readings. It wasn't random. The light was moving in intervals, like a heartbeat. Each pulse matched the frequency of the earthquake she had been tracking. Each line of light corresponded to fault lines on Earth's crust. The planet wasn't just fighting. It was organizing. The next morning, they continued north. The landscape changed as they walked. The trees glowed faintly green, their leaves thick and strong even in freezing temperatures. Rivers had turned dark blue, almost metallic. Nature was evolving faster than it should be. Mara realized the planet was rebuilding itself, healing like a living body. But there was something else, something strange. At night, they started to hear whispers. Not voices, not exactly, but echoes of sound inside their minds whenever they touched the ground. Sometimes it was warmth, sometimes sadness, sometimes memories. The Earth wasn't just alive, it was aware. And it was learning from everything that touched it. One evening, they found another survivor, a pilot named Lena, who had been stranded in the mountains after her aircraft fell from the sky. Her left arm was burned, but she carried a black shard in her bag, a piece of alien metal. When Mara held it, the ground around her rippled. The shard vibrated, then shattered into dust. The soil absorbed it instantly, leaving behind a faint glow. The Earth had rejected it, almost as if it were cleansing itself. That night, Mara made one final recording before she fell asleep. The planet is adapting faster than any organism we know. It's taking energy, reshaping matter, defending itself. Maybe this is how it's always survived, by changing. But I fear that if it keeps evolving at this rate, it might not stop. Not after the aliens are gone. Outside, the wind howled. The aurora pulsed again, brighter, faster, alive. The group slept uneasily, unaware that far beneath their feet, the core of the planet had begun to spin faster than ever before. Earth's heartbeat was getting stronger. And soon, it would not just defend. It would attack. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens slowed their attack. Their once perfect formations wavered. Their signals weakened. Their machines, which had cut through every defense humanity built, were now being dismantled by something far older and far stronger. The planet had woken up. From space, Earth no longer looked like a calm blue marble. Now, veins of gold and red light pulsed across the continents, branching like glowing roots through oceans and mountains. The magnetic field, once invisible, burned with color. The aliens had never seen anything like it, and they were terrified. Dr. Mara Lin and her group reached the northern ridge overlooking a frozen valley. Below them, an alien ship rested, enormous, silent, and cracked open like a dying animal. Its once perfect hull was covered in frost and strange green crystals that grew from the ground, piercing through metal. Mara raised her old binoculars. "It's not just killing them," she whispered. "It's absorbing them." The alien ship began to shudder. A low hum echoed across the valley. Then, suddenly, the ground beneath it cracked open. A geyser of molten rock shot upward, not random, not chaotic. It moved like a spear, piercing through the center of the ship. There was no explosion. The ship simply folded in on itself, metal bending as if crushed by invisible hands. The molten rock cooled instantly, sealing it shut in a tomb of stone. The survivors stared in silence. Even Harris, the old soldier who had seen everything, couldn't speak. "God help us," he murmured. "The planet's got a mind of its own." They kept moving north, but the world around them was transforming faster with each passing day. Forests grew back overnight, denser and darker. Mountains cracked and shifted. Rivers glowed faintly in the dark, carrying blue light through the land like blood. And wherever the alien machines stood, the ground rose against them. One night, far away in what used to be Africa, an alien harvester fell near the Great Rift Valley. It extended its drill arms, trying to feed on the planet's molten core. But the core had learned. The Earth sent up a wave of magnetic energy. The iron in the soil came alive, twisting and coiling like serpents. The harvester screamed, a high, metallic shriek that echoed across the plains. Its body shattered into thousands of pieces that floated briefly in the air before the dust swallowed them whole. In the Pacific, volcanoes erupted in perfect sequence, one after another, forming a wall of fire that blocked an entire alien fleet. The ships tried to rise higher, but a storm formed instantly above them. Lightning struck, over and over, with impossible precision. Each bolt hit a ship's energy core, cutting through their armor like a blade through glass. It wasn't random weather. It was aimed. Dr. Mara Lin knew it for certain now. Earth was aware, strategic, and adapting faster than any enemy ever could. "It's not reacting," she told her group one night. "It's thinking." But there was something else happening, something strange and unsettling. The planet's new energy wasn't just destroying the invaders. It was changing the world itself. Some of the survivors noticed it first in their reflections. Their eyes shimmered faintly in the dark, the same blue light that glowed in the soil. Cuts healed faster. Hunger faded quicker. It was as if the Earth's power was spreading to them too. Mara didn't know if it was a blessing or a warning. Meanwhile, deep under the crust, enormous structures of crystal and molten metal began to form. Not natural formations, but something built. They moved like growing machines, channeling energy from the core toward the surface. The planet was weaponizing itself. From orbit, the remaining alien fleet tried to retreat, but the atmosphere had changed. It was no longer air. It was alive. Winds circled their ships like claws, tearing through their formation. Lightning arcs stretched for hundreds of miles, striking faster than they could escape. In one final attempt, the invaders launched an energy pulse aimed at Earth's surface, a desperate move that could vaporize anything in its path. It never reached the ground. The pulse froze mid-air, bent backward, and collapsed into itself. Then the sky opened. Columns of light shot upward from the surface, hundreds of them, piercing the clouds and reaching into orbit. They looked like roots made of fire, wrapping around the alien ships and dragging them downward. In that moment, the whole world trembled. Every living thing felt it, from the deepest ocean to the highest mountain. A single pulse rippled across the planet, shaking the air, bending time. And for one brief second, the survivors heard a voice. Not words, emotion, rage, power, grief, and something like warning. Then the alien ships fell, hundreds of them, crashing into oceans, deserts, and frozen tundra. The Earth's defense had worked. The invaders were broken. But the planet didn't stop. Storms raged where no clouds had been. Earthquakes struck with unnatural rhythm. The glowing veins beneath the ground grew brighter, spreading across continents. Harris looked at Mara with fear. "It's not done, is it?" "No," she said quietly. "It's just beginning." That night, the survivors watched as a great light pulsed from the horizon, brighter than the sun, rising from deep within the Earth. It wasn't destruction. It was evolution. The planet had won its first battle. But now, it was changing into something new. Something even its own children might not survive. The storms had not stopped. They grew worse with each passing day. The skies flashed with colors no human had ever seen. Green lightning, golden clouds, and waves of sound that rolled through the air like thunder breathing. And then, one night, the seas began to move. Across every coastline, from the frozen Arctic to the burning ruins of Australia, the ocean rose higher than ever before. Not as a single wave, but as if something deep beneath the surface had woken up, stretching its arms for the first time in ages. Dr. Mara Lynn stood on the remains of a cliff overlooking the Hudson Bay. The air was heavy, filled with mist that glowed faintly blue. Her group had built camp near the water's edge, watching the sea churn and boil. Lena, the pilot, pointed toward the horizon. "It's not the tide," she whispered. "Look, it's moving against the wind." The water was flowing uphill. Every survivor felt it. A pull, like gravity itself, had changed direction. Then came the sound, a low, distant roar that grew louder and deeper until the ground beneath them vibrated. The ocean began to rise, higher and higher, until walls of water towered above the coastlines like living mountains. Mara lifted her binoculars, and her breath caught. Far beyond the shore, alien ships hovered over the ocean's surface, huge, black, and dying. Their lights flickered weakly. They were trying to drain energy from the water, desperate to recover what they had lost. But the ocean had other plans. From deep within the sea, blue light burst upward. It wasn't lightning, it was alive. Thousands of tendrils of glowing energy coiled around the ships, dragging them under. The aliens fought back, firing beams of energy into the depths, but the beams vanished the moment they touched the water. The sea had become a shield, a weapon, a mind. In the Mariana Trench, sensors, the few still working, picked up massive movements from the deep. The ocean floor itself was shifting, forming new ridges and cracks. And then, something massive rose from the depths. No one saw it clearly, only shadows beneath the waves. A shape too large, too smooth, too deliberate. Some said it looked like a living mountain. Others said it was pure energy. Whatever it was, it moved with purpose. It struck the alien fleet head-on. The water exploded upward, forming a spiral storm that stretched from the trench to the clouds. It wasn't weather. It was power, ancient, deliberate, and furious. Satellite images, what little remained of them, showed the Pacific Ocean glowing in perfect geometric patterns. Circles, spirals, and lines, as if the sea itself had become a map. It wasn't random. It was communication. Mara's group watched in awe as the scene near the shore began to glow. The waves moved rhythmically, pulsing like a heartbeat. The water wasn't just moving, it was listening. Harris, the old soldier, whispered, "It's calling to something." The air grew thick. The glow brightened until it was hard to see. Then, from the water, rose thousands of crystalline spires, made of salt, sand, and living coral. They twisted upward like fingers reaching for the sky. Each spire emitted a deep, low hum that vibrated through the air. Together, the sound became a single, unified tone. And far out at sea, the alien ships began to die one by one. Their hulls melted. Their engines froze solid. Every shot they fired was reflected back, absorbed by the waves. It was as if the ocean had learned their weapons and turned them against them. Within hours, the alien fleet that covered half the Pacific was gone, erased, swallowed by the sea. Dr. Mara Lynn watched in silence, tears in her eyes. "It's protecting itself," she whispered. "The oceans are defending their own." But the beauty of it carried a shadow. The planet's defense was growing stronger and colder. The tides no longer obeyed the moon. The storms ignored all logic. Earth wasn't only healing, it was evolving. By morning, the entire coastline had changed. New islands had formed overnight, glowing faintly under the mist. Rivers ran in new directions. The magnetic field had shifted again. The planet was rewriting its own geography. As the survivors moved inland, the sea behind them roared once more. A massive wave, taller than the tallest skyscraper, surged toward the shore. But instead of crashing down, it stopped mid-motion, frozen like a wall of living glass. Inside the wave, shapes moved, glowing creatures of light, fish-like but mechanical, swimming through the suspended water. The survivors stared in silence. The sea itself had become alive, a network of energy, intelligence, and motion. Mara slowly raised her recorder. "If this keeps going," she said softly, "the Earth might not need life as we know it. It's building something new." The group left the coast that day, heading toward the old mountains, hoping for safety. Behind them, the ocean shifted once more. The great wave collapsed slowly, peacefully, as if bowing in farewell. And far beyond the horizon, where the last alien ships tried to flee into space, the sea rose one final time, reaching out of the atmosphere, wrapping them in a spiraling column of blue fire. From space, Earth no longer looked like a planet. It looked like a living world covered in glowing veins, breathing light, surrounded by a halo of shimmering oceans. The invaders were gone, but the world had changed forever. Mara looked back one last time and whispered, "We called it home, but maybe it was never ours." Silence. For the first time since the invasion began, the Earth was still. The skies cleared. The storms faded. But it wasn't peace. It was waiting. The kind of quiet that comes before the next strike. Dr. Marilyn stood at the mouth of a cave high in the northern mountains. Her group, what was left of it, gathered around a small fire, its light reflecting off their tired faces. The world outside had become alien. The forest glowed faintly green. Rivers pulsed with light. The air buzzed with invisible energy. Earth was no longer the planet they knew. It was something more. Mara looked up at the night sky. The stars seemed brighter now, but they flickered strangely, as if the planet's magnetic field was bending the light itself. Somewhere out there, beyond the stars, the aliens were trying to send a message. A return signal. Far above the planet, in the cold silence of space, a single surviving alien vessel floated, damaged but alive. Its hull was cracked, its power fading. Inside, a pale light pulsed from what looked like a heart, not a machine, but something living. The ship extended a long antenna toward the void and released a transmission, a pulse of sound that traveled faster than radio, faster than light. It wasn't a message of victory. It was a cry for help, a distress call to its creators. But the Earth heard it too. The signal reached the planet's upper atmosphere, where it should have passed harmlessly into space. Instead, the ionosphere pulsed. Clouds rippled outward in perfect circles. And then, the signal stopped. Mara and her group didn't hear the transmission, but they felt it, a shiver through the air, like static electricity crawling over their skin. Lena gasped. What was that? No one answered. High above them, the aurora flickered violently. Green light twisted into spirals, forming shapes that almost looked like symbols. The planet's magnetic field had reacted, bending the alien signal back toward its source. The message wasn't leaving Earth. It was being rewritten. Deep in the ocean, where the planet's energy lines converged, the pulse of the signal changed direction. The water shimmered. The core of the planet, glowing with molten intelligence, absorbed the data and began to speak back. It wasn't human language. It wasn't sound. It was something greater, a broadcast made of gravity and energy, woven through time itself. The Earth had answered the call. The alien ship in orbit trembled. Its sensors filled with static. The returning signal hit it like a tidal wave, overwhelming its systems. Then, slowly, a new voice filled its core. Not mechanical, not digital, but ancient and deep. The planet was talking to it. No human heard the words, but if they could have translated them, they would have said something like this. "You have taken from me. You have scarred me. Now you will remember me." The ship tried to flee, firing its thrusters, but space itself bent around it. Invisible currents of magnetic energy wrapped around the vessel like chains. Its hull began to twist and fold inward. It wasn't being destroyed, it was being assimilated. From Earth's surface, the survivors saw the sky ignite. A streak of white light crossed the heavens, followed by a thunderous boom that shook the mountains. The alien ship had fallen, swallowed by the planet's gravity, burning as it entered the atmosphere. The crash lit up the night like a second sun. When morning came, Mara and her group climbed down from their cave to find the crash site. They found it half buried in stone and glowing soil. The ship was no longer metal. It had fused with the earth, its surface transforming into crystal. And from within the wreckage, faint lights pulsed like a heartbeat. Harris approached it slowly, his voice shaking. "It's still alive." Mara knelt beside the glowing hull. "No," she whispered. "The planet kept it alive, for a reason." Suddenly, a beam of light shot upward from the wreck, a thin column that pierced the sky and disappeared into space. The survivors stepped back in fear. Lena shouted, "It's sending another signal." Mara shook her head slowly. "No, not them. Us." For the first time in history, Earth was transmitting. The planet was speaking to the stars, not in human voices, but in raw energy. It wasn't a message of distress. It was a warning. From orbit, the energy pole spread across the solar system, echoing off the moon, bouncing past Mars, reaching the edge of the void. Every alien sensor, every scout probe beyond the stars, received the same signal. And then they went dark. Earth had made its point. Back in the mountains, Mara stared at the glowing remains of the alien ship. The ground around it was warm, pulsing softly. She pressed her hand to the soil and felt something. A thought, a whisper, not in words, but in feeling. "I'm awake now. No one will harm me again." Tears filled her eyes. The planet had learned. It had fought back. And now, it was guarding itself, not just from invaders, but from everything. The others didn't notice that the trees nearby had grown taller overnight. The rivers moved faster. The air shimmered faintly with light. Earth was evolving faster than life could follow. Harris looked at Mara. "What happens now?" She didn't answer. She only watched the glowing horizon and whispered, "I think we just met God, and it's the ground we stand on." Far beyond the stars, the return signal echoed through the void, carrying Earth's warning to every world that had ever looked toward the blue planet with greed. And in that silence that followed, a silence deep and eternal, the galaxy listened. Earth had spoken, and it would never be silent again.